So that was good. I had done a lot of radio with David St. Clair before that, but I'd never gotten up in front of a bunch of people. I was always too shy until Paula helped make that happen. So that, and I remember seeing you and Sasha at a couple of them in Laughlin, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Laughlin? Yeah.
Right.
But you know how the
to
energy
Laughlin
works.
one.
It moves so quick, you don't have time to really talk or visit much. So anyway, that's my
Right.
story. Yeah.
It's all perfect with the grand design. So Paula had a bunch of different places, and then is she doing just one a year, or is she doing several a year?
Well, she started off doing the one in Glenrose with Stephenville Lights, and then she ended up doing one in Sebring. I think it was in Florida, and we went in. It was right after when they had the UFO disclosure in May of 2013 with Paul Hellyer, and Paul Hellyer was at the one in Sebring, and Edgar Mitchell was alive, and we were all there then. That was great. Terry Ling was the UFO director in Florida, and so we put that on. They put that on, and I did my music, and that was great. They had many, many presenters that were good. And then from there, in the fall of that same year, I may be wrong on the year, but we went to Chicago and to a place, I think it was near Elmhurst, I'm not sure, and did one there. And that was great. That was when James Fox's little baby was being born, and he couldn't come, but they did him on the big screen, live streaming. So that was really funny and cute, and that was good. And then in 2014, I think I have that right, is when she, after that, went to Laughlin. And from 2014 on, we've stayed in Laughlin.
Okay, so that's when I started going.
So you started going.
I met Paula before at all the UFO Congress things. She used to go there every year.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I met her before Glenrose. I met her at the IUFOC, do I have that right, in Scottsdale.
Yes,
You may have been there, too. You and Sasha, I think, were there. And so we were there.
Yeah, we did that nonstop. This is the first year we were.
I know. And so that's great. I mean, it's good for us to support each other because we all are contactees. And so forth and so on. And we're trying to help this planet to awaken. So, yeah.
So, TJ, are you back yet? Maybe she's not back yet. Are you back?
She's not back yet. I tell you, I want to recommend something really cute.
I'm back.
I want to recommend something really cute for everybody.
Okay,
you know, the two little girls. I think that's the sweetest gift I've ever been given or presented by my friend Taryn, and it's the two little girls speaking. I think I sent that to you. I know I posted it on my Facebook, but I wish for everybody to listen to that. I think it's really innocent and sweet and true.
Yes,
that's all I wanted to say.
I'll try to find that. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, TJ, how did you get involved in counseling people?
I was an investigator, and as a teenager, I already had ESP from, I think it was from my ET UFO involvement, when I died in the second grade and went to White Sands, New Mexico. I don't know if I had it before that, but I do know I had a little child ET coming and going that my mother couldn't see. I think you and I don't think I put that in my book, Ace Guide, but my biography, but I did. I had a little friend. So I guess I'm guessing that person may have helped me have sharper intel. I don't know, folks. I'm guessing. But I believe we're all aliens, to be quite honest, extraterrestrials, because I'm a supporter. I don't know if you'd call it dualism or not, but I believe that we're all higher essence down here in what I call the body, mind, spirit. But at the same time, I believe that it's part of our birth, life, death process. So I always felt I was connected. And so when I died in the second grade with hepatitis, I saw angels, and they told me I was going to be okay. So, and then when I went out to White Sands, I had that, they willed me or I willed me. So this is one of my questions is how to go forward with Janet and Karen and Paula, all these other women in UFO business, ET business, because I would like to know their editorial opinions on how we all get into this. However, I felt like I was chosen because I always had that feeling of being guided, and I would see these beings. And then I was so curious as to how the UFOs came and went that I was seeing. When I wasn't seeing beings, I was seeing UFOs follow me around, and at night zip-zapping around. So I put them together that there was some type of energy I was connected with, because when I was the little girl and I saw myself, I was outside my body. And so out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences, however, whether you believe in them or not, allowed me to know how to come and go out of my body. And I started doing it a lot more dreaming at night and learning how to phase space as a child, because I wasn't allowed to talk about going to White Sands, so I knew from my grandmother and my uncles that were in some kind of secret, this UFO secret space stuff, that there was something to it, but it was like special. I just felt different and special because the adults around me wouldn't let me talk about it. If I wanted to talk about space or Sputnik or UFOs, or flying saucers back then in the 50s, folks. But I really was uniquely different, and as a teenager, I would use it with my boyfriend. And so people would know, how did you know that? Or how did you do that? So when the government came along and discovered me, going to that James Bond movie I talked about, I think it was last week in our episode with Karen and Janet, it was really about teenage time. I started practicing it, being a teenager. You know how our hormones are changing. I was a typical teenager, and I was pretty, and I entered Miss Astro and got into modeling, but I wanted more with my mind. I didn't want to just be a pretty girl. I wanted to be a smart girl. I wanted to be a boy. If I ever get into what reality is, I really wanted to be a boy, and I felt like I was a boy in a girl's body, but we can get into that later in prior life experience, past life regression. But all of that goes for me moving into the future, where I finally started reading books. My mother was an author, and she told us we were the author of our own life story. So I started reading books. She got upset with me because I was misguided in school not to read fiction. Even though I worked in the library, I was a librarian and got to go out of my third grade class at Ransom Elementary in Monroe, Louisiana. From the third to the sixth grade, I learned how to bind books in there. I was very much on editing, binding books, helping the librarian, Mrs. Townsend, and this could all be proven, but who cares? But anyway, I felt like all of it went together. But my mother was really disenchanted because somewhere in high school in Houston, when my mother and dad divorced and moved us to Houston, I was taught to only read nonfiction, that fiction was a waste of time, and it was ingrained in my head. And I had this big discussion. And so I started looking at metaphysics for some reason. It was sort of a cross between, it wasn't fiction, it wasn't nonfiction, but I didn't know what it was. I just knew that these subjects of my out-of-body, near-death, ET stuff drove me over in the I moved around from being a teenager, twirling batons, getting recruited, my husband working at NASA and all that. But it wasn't until 1984 when I was an investigator. I'd worked my way up, folks, in law enforcement, criminal justice background to be an investigator, and then University of Alabama and arson fraud, the fire college, so I learned arson, fraud, subrogation, but fire, and I got to teach with James Posey in investigative services, and I started my company in 1978 while I was in the University of Alabama. But it wasn't until 1984 where, for some reason that year, I had already had UFO experiences. I was in that 1983 New York me and my children, I was in Rochester, New York, where Richard Dolan and Karen Dolan were, living, and my husband was working at Eastman Kodak, and it was a big deal, but I was working for attorneys Coochie Welch, Calicchio Welch, and they helped a lot of elders with, I worked with stock exchange and stuff like that with their money, but I started looking at how ESP and money got all involved, but it made me more curious. But in 84, my attorney died, and I was going to be out of a job because my position is investigator for Coochie Welch, Calicchio Welch, and I was also assistant, had to do, what did they call it back then? Some kind of shorthand. My mother learned it in college, and I had to do shorthand. I don't even remember it now, something. But I used to could do it, but it was something you did, and then you'd go to your, electronic typewriter and type before computers. But I wanted to know how all of this stuff worked. So in 84, my very wealthy attorney that knew me from, he gave me a job when I was 16, and my husband worked at NASA in Clear Lake and League City. He made me a apartment manager, and that led to me learning about people and collecting money, and it was a long story. And he was very wealthy, drove around his gold Cadillac, but I sent out a resume to people, and he called me. It shocked me, and he said he got my resume. Would I be interested? He went over, what did you do for Jim Posey in Birmingham and your company, and would you like to keep that going? And you can come back. And I said, well, what will you pay me? Because I have to move, And he gave me I don't know, it was a good salary, I don't know. But then that's when I went over to where John Gray's mother, he wrote Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, but his mother ran the Aquarian bookstore right down from Rice University, where Mother went as a writer. Mother was very professorial, and she was real educated and real intelligent, had 7 of us kids, and she, believe it or not, before she died, went to went over to that bookstore and wanted to know. She all of a sudden wanted to know why I was so different, because she remembered me having that little playmate. We talked about that. Why she said, Jan, I don't believe in UFOs, but she got a call from Stanton T. Friedman. Stanton Friedman looking for me because Stanton and I were phone buddies, and he was in Canada, and I was living near my mom in Kentucky. But she got a call, and she started putting all this together. But she still didn't. She died telling me she didn't believe in them because she was born in 32, very educated, and her genre, her lifestyle and culture didn't believe in this stuff that I did. But it was 84, and I went back to Houston, and I got into the Unity Church, and I was baptized, again, I've been baptized 2 or 3 times as a Baptist and a Mormon, and that was only 2, I think. Yeah, just only 2. But I got laying on of hands in front of about 300 to 500 people, and we were singing in the Unity Church, We Are the World, We Are the Children, with Michael, which I thought was odd, with Michael Jackson's, we were all singing Holding Hands. But I got moved to go down in front of all these people in this gold pyramid. And I just walked out there like I was a zombie or a channeling contactee or something, and told this couple that was guest pastoring I got called by God and to please lay a hands on me and give me a blessing. And they looked at each other, were shocked, and talked to the guy that ran the church that was it's a big church, folks, in the gold pyramid. And they looked at him, and he looked at them, and he looked like, what do we do? He looked like, so they laid their hands on me, and we had a prayer, and I was called to the psychic world, and I started reading everything I could about all the world religions and churches and UFOs and ETs, and I put it all together with my ESP because that's what the government was interested in, was my psychic abilities and how I handled knives and did things as a teenager. It all went together. So I've only been on a few radio shows before I met Janet in the radio to help her with Stargate to the Cosmos events. But with Janet, I went and did with what was her name? Thomas, Marla Thomas.